Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me. I'm already starting out. 181 frames dropped. Thanks, Xfinity. Let's see what happens. Oh, I know my audio usually comes through. My video looks, pretty tacky, but my audio does usually come through. And then the only other thing I can do is turn this off and then upload it into my videos and record all by myself. And I really don't like doing that, especially since I'm already on live. And it shows a green signal, so we'll see how it comes through. Thanks for joining me live. If you're joining me live, thank you for joining me later on. If you're joining me later on, this is Dr. Annette Feravich. I'm the teacher. What am I teaching today? Spiritual classroom is a struggle. And philosophical classroom is a struggle. And the other two classrooms are not, so they're fun. But this is getting close to my favorite, because this is really close to all the things that have always been near and dear to my heart as far as a psychologist is concerned. Okay, this is not what I wanted to wear, which is basically what I wore yesterday. Hold on, let me go get, I have my scarf somewhere that goes over this dress. We have to always make sure that we've got all the important things also covered, because we are media. And it appears I left that scarf in my chair right behind me. There it is. Okay. And it's all doubled up and everything. The only thing I need to do is fluff up those pillows, man. Get me cranked up there a little bit. Okay. This is a dress that I got from my Aunt Sheila. I figured out close to 30 years ago. All right, so favorite class. We're all ready now. Let's go. How to change your thinking. Now, hopefully you are sort of getting into the routine of what I do. I bait you with a title, but the baiting has more than one purpose. It's really not, and I never actually intended it to be a bait. I actually intended it to be what I was talking about. But then as time goes on, and as I detail, because nobody's in a hurry, I don't really end up getting to the topic there, but so it leads me in the right direction in my own mind. Where was I going? Oh yeah, by the end of this, I need to be there. How to change your thinking. So yeah, that's where we're going with this. And again, like I said, one of the reasons why I love this is because I teach a lot of really wonderful psychological concepts. I do in the philosophical classroom as well. So, and that's on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And we do that starting at 2:00 and Eastern Standard Time. And I like that one too. But again, that one does not come naturally for me. It does in some ways, but I have to organize it. So it takes a lot of work, because you just can't throw out a bunch of philosophical concepts at people. And the more structured they are, the more likely it is I'm doing this, right? Whatever I'm doing here, because this is very structured to me as it relates to psychological concepts that are related to you. Remember, what this classroom really is about is finding out who you are and doing that Bloom's taxonomy, the critical kind of thinking about who you are. Let's pop that up there, that Bloom's taxonomy, because sometimes people don't have any. If you just pop in, you don't really know necessarily, there I am, what I am talking about. So this is from the other day, so the dates are not correct, but I don't have the slides up there because because I have them here. And I don't want to pull up a repeat is what I don't want to do. I don't know what that does. I think it could crash the system now any day now. So we are, for Critical Thinking Classroom, we really are about finding out who you are. And even in, you know, some of these studies that I talk about that seem like they are a little bit fly by night, like that one, right? Like that one I sort of maybe just kind of stuck in here, really gives us a great indication of human nature, right? What is our human nature? If we lose a parent, that's what Harlow's study really was looking at. If we lose a parent, can we still grow up to what? Know who we are. What's this class about? Finding out who you are, yourself. And as a psychologist, that's what and a social psychologist in particular, that's really what I know. You know, that's my area of expertise. And even more specific, it is about how to do things better, how to get better, right? How to get yourself better. If you're in the throes of depression, or if you are an executive, how do you get better? So listen up. Why hasn't anyone hired me for some of these executive training kinds of positions or something like that? Honest to God. And let me tell you something else. From all of this, I have got some pretty good ideas. And here's the idea. You need to be paying the salaries that you pay people for the jobs that they do. You need to up the salaries for people who are in the service industry that typically don't get a decent salary, like even teachers, for example. You need to up those salaries, but you really need to cut their work week down to 3 days a week. So you need to pay them what they are worth, not by the hour. You have to pay them what they are worth for that position and for the jobs that they do. And you need to cut their workday down to 3 days a week. You guys are making up their money hand over fist. We used to, again, I've said this before, we used to embarrass CEOs in the 1980s by publishing their salaries, and people would be horrified and want them out of there, or want them to be more equitable, want them to be more equal in the distribution of their money. But nowadays we do talk about, you know, the top 1% and what they are doing, right? That top 1%, what they're doing to keep getting their money. But you know, a lot of this other stuff we are not mentioning, like their salaries, like their specific salaries, like Yahoo #1 is making this kind of salary. Not what they're worth. I don't give a crap what you're worth. I want to know what you're making in your salary, and then what the average employee is making. That's what we want to know. You journalists out there, get to journaling about something other than whatever you think makes headline news. It's not about what you think makes headline news. They're telling you what makes headline news. Now figure it out yourself, what really makes headline news. Because every person in this country is bucking the system and can't stand the media. So make headline news. Start reporting those salaries of those, and I'm going to say it, MFers who are sitting over there walking all over the backs. And let's just also, I'm going to just say this right now too. I'm going to just say to Shackley, oh my gosh, you did not have a Mother's Day sale. You didn't have a Mother's Day sale. You should be embarrassed. You, mostly men in the administration over there making money hand over foot. You are whatever. Jeff Hill and Roger Barnett making all that kind of money, and you didn't even have on the backs of mostly women who were providing second incomes for husbands who sometimes couldn't provide the primary income. On the backs of those women, you didn't even bother to have a Mother's Day sale. Here, insert uncomfortable silence. Shackley, you didn't even bother to have a Mother's Day sale when the people who are in your highest echelon are making most of your money on the backs of women, and you didn't bother to have a Mother's Day sale. I know. I know. And I sell Shackley because it's a great product. I'm hoping that through all of this, here's my dream and my imaginary when I go someplace my own, fantasy land. That's the word I was looking for. Into my own fantasy. This is my fantasy. That because Shackley has not been doing right by their sellers and making so much money, but really not doing right by their sellers. It is a, the P word, P-Y-R-A word. And then there's a mid there, right? And so yeah, so that's what that is. So making that money there on the backside. But here's my fantasy. My fantasy is that they have got caught doing too many things and somebody has purchased some of their products that I like their fiber. Why don't you have a fiber? With all the gut issues that we have, you have no fiber. You took away your fiber tablets and then you took away your fiber powder. Why would that be? Where's your little Pearl probiotic going? Where's that going? Because it seems there's a problem here. I'm not quite sure if you're addressing it. What up? Because there's a lot of money to be made in supplements. So let's get going. Harry Harlow is telling us that we can still make it without our parents, though. That's what Harlow. So this was a very big deal. What are we talking about? All the things that I'm talking about, even when I go off on whatever you would think would be a tangent or whatever you think that it is, on Shackley over here, which is, probably the best evidence of a tangent that I might go on. Yeah, exactly. It still does bring it back around. I am demonstrating ways that I know who I am. And that, again, let's go back from the beginning of this little linear relationship. When we take a look at it, so from the beginning of this episode on self-esteem, basically, it's basically on self-esteem. So self-esteem, self-worth, optimism, pessimism, right? Which led into attraction, attachment, sexiness, right? And then what was the last one? I kind of threw that one in there. And then this one is on what I call attribution retraining. Let me take a look at. Because I still have all these up there. So, loving relationships. What were loving relationships? And I asked you in that one if you cared or thought that loving relationships were worth it, right? Were worth whatever the effort was that you put into it. So that was, so into loving relationships. And now, if it's worth the effort, if loving relationships are worth the effort, let's talk about how we can change ourselves. So again, all of this really having a lot to do with what Harlow was talking about as far as what do we need to live a normal life, to be normally functioning, to not be so what? Pessimistic, so that we are not so controlling or helpless, right? So we are not so sickly, right? So we are not, well, we said so we are not so helpless, but so we are not so preoccupied in our relationships. So we are not so fearful in our relationships. So we are not so dismissing in our relationships. So we can develop what we would consider to be healthy, secure relationships. Now, if you recall, This is starting from a perspective of your adult relationships, right? So I gave you descriptions on adult relationships, and you said whether or not those adult relationships actually, which one best reflected you. So there we have those descriptions again, and you can take a look at the attachment style, which is to the left of the descriptions there, to see which one best describes you. And then, so we were moving from these adult concepts that we have of our relationships, and we're going to then move into knowledge and understanding of our infant attachment relationships, which 60% of the time they're the same. They're similar, right? 60% of the time they are the same as we have in our adult life. So take a look at those descriptions that I have right there, right? Take a look. Carol Merrill from The Price is Right. Or was it from, no, Carol Merrill was from Let's Make a Deal. That's where Carol Merrill was from. Let's Make a Deal with Monty Python. Monty Hall, Let's Make a Deal. Carol Merrill. And Carol Merrill, there we go. Okay, so there's our adult description. See how I do that? See? Hey, were you falling asleep while you're cooking? Stop it. Okay, but these are the great things to watch while you're cooking, and what a great thing to be doing, right? Or you could like put your earphones in and listen to it, but you can't see the PowerPoints. And those PowerPoints really are very helpful, I think. I've had them, around, and I've used them so they have reliability for learning because I've used them and students have learned. Okay, so we don't want to be stuck in these unhealthy attachment styles, right? So today, as we are moving into, we really did cover loving relationships, I think. The whole, just to really plant the seed about whether or not they're worth it to you, right? And now to show you ways to develop them. Attribution retraining. Why such a big word? It really does give you a great idea of everything we've been talking about in 2 words. In 2 words, which you could say retake control. Attribution retraining is retaking control. But we're going to get to that. We're going to get to it. Do you remember what attributions are? This is it's not that important, but it's helpful. Attributions are the cause of why things happen. So when we make an attribution, we say why something happened. So attribution retraining would be to retrain our concepts of why something happened. And does this start ringing bells with our concepts of control and with our concepts of positive or optimism and pessimism? Is that starting to ring a bell? I don't know if any bells are ringing, Xfinity, since I'm losing so many frames over here. What bells exactly are ringing over here for $100 a month? And that's all I get. I don't even get HBO or anything else like that. I'm talking about my Xfinity. I'm talking about my internet. $100 a month. And you can't even, and all I see is like, it's like a stoplight over here. Red, green, and some kind of yellow. Exactly like a stoplight. Okay. So I've given you examples, and so between Tuesday's class and Wednesday's class, so episode number 28 and 29 of the classroom, critical thinking classroom, I really have gone into some really good explanations of these different attachment styles. And then right there, underneath there, right here, I have got, here, let's do the other hand. What I have there is, so healthy adaptive mechanisms. When we are adaptive, we are responsive. When we are maladaptive, we are basically self-interested. is what it amounts to. To the point of what? Well, to the point of maybe even being fearful, right? Maybe I could be angry. That's dismissive. That's dismissing. Maybe I could be needy. That's preoccupied, right? But maybe I could be, right? I could be just really basically, afraid that I don't know what to do for my children. I don't know what to do for my spouse or for my significant other. I don't know how to respond to my parents. I don't know how to respond to my in-laws. Oh, it's all like this, right? So these are very helpful. And when you see the ingredients that go into these different types of attachment styles, the ingredients being anxiety and avoidance. How much anxiety do you have when you're inside relationships or outside relationships? Is your mind always on the relationships? Is there anxiety that comes along with it? And then, does that anxiety create you too? Or does that anxiety not create you too? But does it motivate you to cling? Just like we saw with those monkeys, right? When they didn't have the proper background, which is pure, right? Or maternal love that we need on that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What did they do, right? Did they avoid? Well, in the video, one of them did, right? Walking around like that. Remember that? One of them avoided. Some of them cling. See how we can't manipulate an infant and their attachments, but we can monkeys. And the issue over here is that when they did it, they didn't realize the devastation. They didn't. Let me tell you something else. This also coincided with some information that they were finding out from Romania, and due to the totalitarian government that they had there, a dictator that they had there in Romania, they were forcing people to have babies, and that any kind of abortion or contraception was outlawed. Why? Because they believed that people were resources. Are we hearing something very similar going on here in the United States? Have babies, have babies, have babies. Because why? It's a belief that people are resources. They're only resources if you turn them into soldiers, right? Which is exactly what communism here in the United States is trying to do with our citizens. Turn us into soldiers. Science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Trying to turn us into soldiers, right? Chinese soldiers is what they're trying to, communist soldiers. Right? Not to disparage a whole entire ethnicity, right? But you can, a theory, right? Communist is a theory, so political theory. So you can disparage a theory, right? Okay, all right. So let me get back to whatever thought this was over here with our attachment then. So you can see the flow of where we're going into this, but so Harlow demonstrated this kind of neuroticism, right, that we might have with relationships where we begin to what? Grasp at straws, clinging, clawing, right? Never releasing, right? With all the claw marks as you leave a relationship. Is that you? Does that describe you, right? And so again, all of this really is going back to, so I showed you the examples. Some of them avoided, right? Some of them avoided that one monkey that we saw in the video here that was on this exact frame over here, right? Look at that. I got it.
In the 1960s, psychologist Harry Harlow continued where Kellogg had left off.
Harlow's work was really seminal in this entire field because he showed the crucial importance of the caregiving relationship between a mother and an infant, and how the physical stimulation, literally the physical contact with the caregiver, has profound impact on healthy development.
Harlow took newborn baby monkeys from their mothers. He gave them a choice between a cold wire monkey with milk or a soft, warm monkey without. They chose comfort above food every time. Socially, the effects of this experiment were devastating. Raised in isolation, with
that one right there, that's the one I'm talking about. So that one right there is demonstrating avoidance. Let me go. I couldn't interact because I forgot how to do this for a second and a half. So let's go ahead and do a normal size over here of what's going on. And we'll see the avoidance style of this monkey, okay?
Without any love or encouragement, the young monkeys were scared and confused. Here was proof that early isolation damaged them for life. But these were monkeys. Would the same be true for a human child? 20 years later, scientists had the chance to find out.
And so we can see there where there was the avoidance there of the other monkey, right? So the monkey comes down and there's the avoidance. So we see these two different styles, right? We see these two different styles. The style to cling to a relationship even if it's bad for us, right? Or this style to be avoiding, which is the dismissing. The dismissing has confidence, right? The dismissing person has confidence. I don't need you, and you shouldn't need me either. You know who you are. They're narcissists is who they are, right? So dismissing, and you shouldn't need me either. The preoccupied is the clinging. The fearful one is a combination of both in a way. It's a dismissing, but not because you desire it. It's kind of like the I mentioned this the other day and I don't remember the names, but the celibate who's not by choice, right? Somebody who's celibate not by choice. That's fearful. That's a fearful attachment. I want to be close. Nobody wants me. And now I don't even know what to do in a relationship. I don't even know how to handle a woman, right? And then we go into this angry, fascist kind of, I call it latent homosexual hostility. And it is. It is this complete denial of a need for a woman and then figuring out how to be self-sufficient and self-satisfying, right? And if you're there, sorry, but that you just are you're in a nasty place. If you're there, you're just in a very, very nasty place. And paying attention to this really can help you figure out how to get out of it. That person is the ultimate narcissist and the ultimate bully. So where is their self-esteem? You really can learn to get out of this if you pay attention to these videos, starting with the videos that we had on self-esteem in this whole series that we had. And as I said, we went to self-worth, we went to optimism and pessimism. We went to attraction, attachment, sexy, loving relationships. And now we're here with attribution retraining. How do we change our thinking? Was that an intro, Dr. Feravich, or is that part of the lecture? Do I need to take notes right now or what? Okay. So let's start now drawing some associations with our adult attachment styles and with our infant attachment styles, okay? So these are the infant attachment styles. And when we left, what I showed you was Mary Ainsworth's video on the attachment styles. And what I said to you was that the most important thing about recognizing those attachment styles is recognizing what was the infant's behavior when the mother left the room and what was the infant's behavior when the mother returned. And so now you can think about this all on your own as well, right? You can think about what, and that's what I thought. I thought about this with my older son, right? My younger son attached, my older son, not as much as my younger son. And I said, we're going to go into Erik Erikson's, I didn't mention his name, Erik Erikson's psychosocial stages of development. Because what I'm saying to you, what you have to believe in until I get to the theory, is that what is missing in this relationship is trust. It is the very essence of our self-confidence. It's the very essence of our relationship with ourselves and with other people. But it does seem to start with other people. Do I trust that my mother is going to be here for me? It starts right there. And remember, I know if you're my mother or not because of your scent. It starts right there. Now, let's be very clear. This is really important, what I'm about ready to say. I said about 60% of individuals have an adult attachment style that matches their infant attachment style. Maybe even more. But that doesn't mean that it is set in stone. You're like, well, that's pretty good percentage, Dr. Feravich, over 50%. Yes, it is a pretty good percentage. But knowledge is power. And I've said that to you in this class regarding this topic specifically. Knowledge is power. It's no different than when we talked about Milgram's study, right? Would I get into Milgram's study and would I give shocks to another person until they basically stopped speaking? Would you do that? No. Why not? Because you know about the study there. That's the biggest reason why you wouldn't give shocks in Milgram's study all the way to the end. Why? Because you know about the study. Why can you not be always about your attachment style? Because you know. Because knowledge is power. And when I tell you about these attachment styles, you can become aware of your behaviors. If you're dismissing, you can become aware of those behaviors. And then once you become consciously aware, it's just not like you're a robot moving, dismissing. I don't like you. You need me? Too bad. Sorry. Oh, so sorry. Like a robot. You know who you are. And dismissing of all your relationships. And you might say, well, no, that's not how I want to live. I don't want to live like a robot. I do think that loving relationships are worth it. If you can find it, I do believe loving relationships are worth it. And so I don't want to be so dismissing anymore. How can I change that? So knowledge is power. How do we change it? We first begin with knowledge. And then I'll talk about, right, knowing what attachment style I have. And then when we talk about these infant attachment styles, which you have no way of knowing how you reacted when your mother left and then when your mother returned. You have no way of knowing that. You could ask your mom, and good luck, Chuck, with getting the right answer on that, right? But you could probably guess. And even if it wasn't, one way or the other, it doesn't really matter. Knowledge is power. You can't change it, right? You can't change it. You can't be like, hey, Mom, why don't you pay attention to me? I'm only 6 months old. No, you can't do that. So knowledge is power if you want to change these adult things. Attachment styles, right? If you want to change your adult attachment style, knowledge is power. But also it gives you so much when you know the infant attachment, and if your parents are still with you and you still have relationships and you have to still struggle through that, this will give you a lot of information. If your mother was dismissing, if the primary caregiver for you was dismissing, and there are still, because neither one of you have been so enlightened to stop that behavior, right? So now your adult relationship with your mom is still dismissing. That's valuable information, because it's like, I'm not going to count on my mom to fill my needs because my mom doesn't think my needs are important. And why doesn't my mom think my needs are important? Not because she doesn't love me, but because her attachment style is dismissing, probably for the same reasons that your attachment style is whatever your attachment style is. Do you see? And do you also see, spiritually speaking, how the sins of the father are carried out into the third and fourth generations? Why? Well, let's look psychologically right here at attachment styles, right? If we look at attachment styles, we can see why third and fourth generations would be suffering the sins of a dismissing parent or caregiver, or a preoccupied caregiver, or a fearful caregiver, one who doesn't know how to meet the needs in any way of their child. All right, so for these categories, they are, and just a little background on science, all right? So some scientists were studying Mary Ainsworth, infant attachment style. Bartholomew and Horowitz were studying adult attachment style. Dr. Annette Feravich brings these two together by choice. I cherry pick the ones that I think scientifically make sense, psychologically make sense. I pull those theories. These aren't the only theories on infant attachment style, all right? They aren't the only theories, although they are predominantly the theories on adult attachment style. Predominantly they are. Other infant attachment styles, predominantly Bartholomew and Horowitz, have the whatever market on adult attachment style, because it makes sense, and because their theories really do coincide in many ways with the infant attachment style. Now I'll say one more thing, scientifically speaking, and that is this. At Oakland University, I talked about how you can, from these styles of infant attachment. So how does the infant behave when the mother leaves the room? How does the infant behave when the mother returns to the room? You could theoretically predict the personality of that mother. If you have a dismissing father, you could predict his personality to be more authoritarian, right? More strict. He's the disciplinarian, for example. Scientifically speaking, however, I have been told that those relationships are not significant. That means that I might think that a dismissive parent is authoritative in personality. That hasn't been demonstrated scientifically. Okay? And for that, all I have to say is, so what? Likely the measures are wrong. We can clearly see, and we can clearly see, I'll finish that sentence. We can clearly see the relationship between the personality of somebody who is dismissing and the behaviors of somebody who is dismissing. We know measuring behavior and attitude has never had a very good correlation. So I'm saying it's the measures. I'm saying for practical reasons, it's very valuable to think about how would and again, we have different language here. So let's go back to this language. How would a dismissing parent, what would their personality be? What would a fearful parent's personality be? What would a preoccupied parent's personality be? All right? And we do have some characteristics of them, right? Like a dismissing person, characteristic is I don't need anybody, and neither should you. Preoccupied characteristic is depressed, anxious, needy, clingy. Okay? So there are characteristics. But does that in the end equate to an abusive parent, a strict parent, a disciplinarian? And what the science is saying is no, it doesn't. What I'm saying is I don't need those numbers to make a practical association that's valuable, right? It is valuable, all right? You don't have the numbers. I don't believe in your measures. Sometimes it's biased. I talk about biases in the philosophical classroom. It is absolutely biased. It absolutely is. I think that I have some evidence for why my bias works. And all it is to help for an understanding, a better understanding of what we're talking about. Okay? All right. And for you to make an assessment on your own parents, right? So I might say that a dismissing parent is an authoritarian, right? Not authoritative. Or is authoritative? Yeah, authoritative, right? Not authoritarian. No, authoritarian, not authoritative. One is for a secure parent. Honestly, a secure parent is authoritative. Authoritarian is a dismissive parent, right? Who is strict. So let's go through these and you'll have a better idea of what I'm talking about, okay? So we saw the Mary Ainsworth video. You can look up, if you didn't see it, you can look at day number 29 and see the Ainsworth video that I had on day 29. I end day 29 in the critical thinking classroom with Mary Ainsworth video. You can go back and look at that. You can go look online, and in your search would be Mary Ainsworth, and the spelling is right up there at the top of the slide. Ainsworth classification. So Mary Ainsworth, and look up attachment styles, and you can find, it's called strange. Her measure is called strange situation. So what might somebody do, a child do, in a strange situation?
Show me the Carfax value. You'll get the most accurate price based on the vehicle's accident history. How can you tell which one's the better?
But can the essential elements of home life be translated into a standard Now the first part of the procedure is over, and Lisbeth settles Lisa down again. Once again, the efforts of the stranger to console. But Lisbeth manages to calm her almost at once, and shortly afterwards the observation ends.
Okay, so giving you a good idea of what we're talking about when we're talking about, the reaction, again, that was Ainsworth video, and the reaction of the infant when the mom left the room, when the mom returned to the room, and also, was the infant easily comforted by the stranger? And now we've got the classifications here. So let's take a look at those two topics there, those two variables. How did the infant react when the mother left the room? And how did the infant react when the mother returned to the room? For a secure infant, infants were secure enough to explore their world. Now, this is a little bit different explanation. And that explanation is up there to introduce a slightly different concept to you. How does that infant react within the world? So a secure infant, how would a secure infant, that infant that we saw in the video was a secure infant. How would that infant react when the mother left the room? She would be upset. That's attachment. She's attached to her and not to the stranger. How did the infant react when the mother returned to the room? The infant was easily comforted by the mother, not the stranger. That's a secure attachment. I need my mama. And when she leaves the room, I'm upset. And when she returns the room, I am no longer afraid. That is a secure attachment. When I have a secure attachment with my mom, my primary caregiver, we can say that, it's not easy to get a secure attachment with somebody who's not your biological mother, right? It's just actually not as easy as it is. You start with the scent of the mom, of the biological mom, for the milk, which is sustenance. It helps that infant actually live. That infant might have a built-in desire for their mother's milk. So it certainly can contribute, but we see with the monkeys in Harlow's study, it is not the end all and be all that you have to be raised by your primary caregiver has to be your biological mother. It does not. And we saw that, thank goodness, for Harlow's studies that he did in the 1970s. Okay? So secure enough to explore the environment. And you can see the title of the video of Ainsworth research was Strange Situation. Why? Because what does an infant do if they are securely attached? And this is so key to their development. The secure attachment is so key to the development of an infant. Why? Because they feel safe enough to explore their world. And what do specifically? They use their primary caregiver, if there's a secure attachment, as a base. They call that primary caregiver, they call it, that primary caregiver provides a secure base is what they call it. The primary caregiver provides a secure base for the infant to explore their world. What does an infant do? If you have children, you know this, and you watched and you raised the child. In a new situation, in the store, when you go to grandma's house and there's all the relatives there, the infant will hold on to the mom's leg, right? Until the infant sees something that makes the infant curious enough to what? Explore. But then something happens and the infant comes back where? To the mom's leg. If the infant is always afraid, where's the infant always? Always on the mom's leg, provided that the mom is the secure attachment. The infant becomes fearful adult if there is no mom or no other primary caregiver to grab onto the leg. So close your eyes and picture that. You're at a family event with it could be a family reunion with all kinds of people there, and you've got a 2-year-old, a 1.5-year-old, and they can walk, so you put them down because you have to do things, and where are they? Attached to your leg until they see something interesting, and then they'll run off until they get afraid, and then they run back. A fearful child, a preoccupied adult will have pink childhood there, salmon colored childhood there. We'll talk about it in a minute. And what do? They cling incessantly to their mom. Why? Because their mom's over here and over there and over there. So there's a little bit of fear there, clings incessantly to the mom. The fearful adult that we talked about over here has no mom to cling to. So when the infant is put down, in the midst of all of these strangers who are family, but strangers to the infant, what happens? Stranger after stranger picks him up or leaves the baby alone. The baby goes and explores and gets hurt. The baby can't find his or her mother, right? That creates a situation of fear in an infant that creates this fearful situation or fearful attachment as an adult. Do you see the importance of these relationships and how you can kind of then do your own kind of thinking and investigation about your own relationships? So that's a secure relationship. Infants are secure enough to explore the world. The other ones are going to go a little bit faster. And these are names. And this name here, I'm just going to say, this name, insecure avoidance, would parallel with the preoccupied adult. This is when, as an infant, the infant is not bothered by the mother's absence, but shows distress upon her return. So this is an infant that does not want to I'm sorry, I was mixing those up a little bit. It's not preoccupied. This is dismissing. This is the mom who is strict. So I should have matched those colors up is what I should have done to the other colors. I think I'm going to do that. I'll probably redo this slide and I'll match those colors up. And then we'll have a little bit better review of this on Tuesday when we come back to this. So that insecure avoidant is I'm avoiding my mom. Why would I avoid my primary caregiver? Because I don't like her. I'm fine when she leaves. And I'm bothered when she comes back. Why? I don't like her. Why wouldn't an infant not like their mother? Because she's too strict. This isn't an infant who's afraid, right? It's not afraid. I'm fine by myself. And they grow up to be a dismissing adult. I'm fine by myself. That's the insecure avoidant. I avoid relationships. Turn into the dismissing adult. The next one, insecure resistant. This is when the mother leaves, the infants are distressed when the mother leaves, and there is inconsistent behavior when the mother returns. Inconsistent behavior means that sometimes the infant is bothered when the mother returns, and sometimes the infant is very happy and joyful when the mother returns. So sometimes distressed when the mom returns, sometimes joyful. This is reflecting the same feelings of the mom. This is the mom who is neglectful in a way because she's so self-absorbed, a depressed and anxious mom. That's what this mom is, or primary caregiver, is depressed and anxious. So the infant doesn't ever know when the right time is to approach the mom. Right? She might be in her own world. She might be crying and she might want to just hug me and hold me forever until I can't even breathe anymore. So sometimes I want her to love and hold me, so I'm joyful when she returns. Sometimes I can't take her. She's just way too much and I don't need her when she returns. So that is the insecure resistant. I resist her, and that turns into the preoccupied adult. Obviously, the secure infant, it turns into the secure adult for attachment. And the very last one there is insecure, disorganized, or fearful. And these are very specific behaviors, and they're called freezing behaviors is what they are. So when an infant literally freezes when the parent comes back, stands still and doesn't know what to do. This infant is fearful, and that infant who is that fearful to the point of freezing behavior, can't go forward, can't go backwards, they don't play, they don't hear the teacher, come on, get your coat, your mom's here, they freeze. That is a child who is afraid. Doesn't have to be afraid of the mother, I'm not saying, but they are in an abusive situation typically. These percentages aren't 100%. But typically, there was a mouse that we had in the house, and my dad set a trap, and the trap went off, and he went to go collect the mouse, and the mouse was standing there frozen, dead, but frozen in fear, frozen next to the trap. So the trap went off, and it did not catch the mouse. The mouse got the piece of cheese, but then the trap went off, and the mouse was standing there frozen dead. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about freezing because your fear is so deep. And in an infant, it can't be described, right? Where with an adult, you can rationalize a deep-seated fear. There's a sound. I'm in my house. All my doors are locked. No big deal, right? An infant can't rationalize that fear because they don't have the capacity, the mental experience to rationalize it. So all it is with an infant is a feeling of fear. And we see that expressed in frozen behavior. And of course, then we know that that is related to the fearful adult. So those are our infant attachment styles to our, and matching those adult attachment styles. So what do we do? We said, so what do we do for this attribution retraining, which is really what we're supposed to be talking about, right? How to change your thinking is where we're going. And we always say we end our videos, I end my videos pretty much with where we're going, which is kind of the title. So what do we do for this retraining then? What do we do? Well, it is an act of control is what it is. But what are we trying to control? Be specific, Dr. Feravich. I need you to tell me specifically, what do I need to control? And I'm going to tell you specifically, and that's how we're going to end this then, with the introduction of attribution retraining. And look at where we're going. We're going all the way to the beginning of these slides, almost to the very beginning, to see what do we need to control. And she's slowing down how to explain our events. That our good events and our bad events. We need to be consciously aware of the cause of the events. That's what this is about. Optimistic, explanatory style, optimistic thinking, pessimistic thinking has to do with how much can I control an event. And now we can see, what do I need to think about? Well, the things I need to think about is, first of all, my self-talk, because the self-talk tells me specifically, am I an optimist or a pessimist, right? And it tells me more specifically, how am I an optimist or a pessimist? We don't care if we're an optimist. I mean, we do, but because that's great, Yahoo. But we probably have secure attachments, so we don't have to worry about it so much, right? We care for a pessimist because those are the things that we have to worry about, right? So listen to your self-talk. Is it stable? This always happens to me, right? Is that global in every situation? Is it my fault? Is it due to icy roads? Is it due to her mood? Is it due to, right, something I said? Then I can change that. That's not stable. Is it due to something I said? Is it due to something I did? Do I do it all the time? In every situation? Do I always do this? Is it always going to be a problem for us? Attribution retraining simply is focusing on internal, external, stable, unstable, global, specific. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you're going to have to go back to probably day 26 to find out, or day 25 of the classroom to find out a little bit more specifically, but there is what we talk about in detail. So you go back to this PowerPoint there, and where I'm talking about this PowerPoint in detail, and you are going to be able to get a hold of what do you need to focus on for attribution retraining. And don't forget, there are really, really great benefits to it, right? You can look at the explanations that we have. These are examples, rather, that we have of the attributions we make. This is how we score it. So I was talking about how we score it, right? How we measure it, how we measure our feelings of control. You could even take a look at some of those statements and which one of those statements really sound like you, and then use the reverse statements. Start beginning to see which statements sound like you, and then catch those statements by looking at these measures of these different statements that we make, or even here in this personal efficacy, which is a personal control. There are statements. How much of those statements sound like you that are positive, optimistic, based on our definitions of optimism and pessimism, based on our measures of optimism and pessimism, which is a definition for scientists. A measure is a definition. Here, this is a definition of personal efficacy. Why? Because it's a measure of it, right? So looking at these statements in this measure, change the statements in your life. Change those statements in your life. So you're no longer making the pessimistic statement, you're making the optimistic statement. And that, my friends, is attribution retraining. That's what that is. Below there, the title, how do you change your thinking? You change your thinking through attribution retraining. What's attribution? The cause of the bad or good event. The cause is stable or unstable. The cause is global or specific. The cause is my fault, or that I can change or can't change, or is due to something outside myself that I can or can't change. The things to begin to focus on so you understand the attributions, the reasons that things happen. You focus on your self-talk to find out the reasons that you think good events or bad events happen in your life. This is Dr. Annette Feravich. Thank you for joining me. That was a wrap. That was almost a wrap on this topic that started with self-esteem, right? How do we boost it? I've given you so many ways. We'll do a summary when we come back Tuesday. Talk about a summary on how to really change and really build your confidence and your trustworthiness so that you boost your self-esteem. In everyday language, you boost your self-esteem. Thanks, Dr. Annette Feravich. I'm the teacher. This is the classroom. This is the critical thinking classroom. See you Tuesday for class day number 31.